You have been lied to about time, not maliciously. The lie is comfortable, so it spreads on its own. It goes like this. Fixing your money takes years, so there's no point starting today. People repeat it because it excuses them. If the timeline is long enough, quitting starts to look like patience. Inaction gets a respectable name. You tell yourself you're being realistic, and the years pass, and nothing moves. And you were never being realistic at all. You were hiding. Here is the correction. Getting rich takes years. Changing direction takes 90 days. These are not the same problem, and confusing them has kept you exactly where you are for longer than you'd like to admit. You will not become wealthy in 3 months. Anyone who promises that is selling you something, and the thing they're selling is usually the reason you're broke. But in 3 months, you can move from chaos to control, from avoidance to a plan, from money happening to you to money moving because of you. That shift, the change in trajectory, not the change in balance, is what actually decides where you stand in 10 years. A rocket that adjusts its angle by 1 degree at launch lands on a different continent. You are not trying to travel far in 90 days. You are trying to change the angle. That is the entire assignment. Everything in this article serves that one idea. And if you finish reading and take nothing else, take that the direction matters more than the distance, and the direction can change fast. This is work, not a trick, not a hack, not a mindset you download and feel better about. Work. If you want magic, close the tab now and save yourself the discomfort. If you want the truth, keep reading, because the next part is going to press on the exact places you've been avoiding. And the pressure is the point. Why 3 months is the right number? 3 months is not arbitrary. It is the narrow window where 2 opposing forces briefly overlap. And outside that window, one of them always wins and drags you back to where you started. 90 days is long enough to build habits that survive on their own. A behavior you repeat for 3 months stops requiring willpower. It stops being a thing you force and becomes a thing you are. It crosses from decision into default until you'd have to consciously interrupt yourself to stop doing it. That is the real target, not effort, but automation, not a heroic push, but a groove worn deep enough that the water runs through it without being told to. 90 days is also short enough that you can still see the end of it. Motivation is not a virtue. It is a fuel. And fuel evaporates. Ask anyone who set a 5-year goal in January and couldn't remember it by March. The human brain does not sustain effort toward a horizon it cannot see. Stretch the timeline too far, and the goal turns abstract. And abstract goals die quietly, unmourned, replaced by whatever is loud and immediate. 3 months keeps the finish line inside your field of vision the whole way through. Close enough to run toward, far enough to matter. So understand the actual objective, because almost everyone gets it wrong on the first day and never recovers. Your goal in these 90 days is not a number in a bank account. The number will be small. It will not impress your friends, and it will not impress you. If you measure this project by the size of that number, you will judge it a failure by week 3 and walk away from the one thing that was working. Your goal is to build a system, a machine that keeps running after the 90 days are over, moving money in the right direction whether you are paying attention or not. There is a difference between a temporary fix and a structural change, and it is the difference between a diet and a metabolism. A diet ends. Willpower runs out. The old habits flood back, and the weight returns with interest. A metabolism does not end. It runs underneath everything, silently, correctly, forever. What we are rebuilding is not a diet. It is your financial metabolism. Hold that distinction in your mind through every step that follows. Because the moment you forget it, you'll reach for the crash diet again. And the crash diet is why you're here. Month 1. See the truth and stop the bleeding. The first month is diagnosis, and diagnosis only. You do not get to build anything yet. You do not get to feel accomplished yet. You are here to find out how bad it is and to stop it from getting worse. In that order. Surgeons stop the bleeding before they operate. So do you. It begins with facing the numbers. And this is where most people quit before they've started. Sit down and list everything, every asset, every debt, every source of income, every recurring expense, real numbers pulled from real statements, not estimates, not around, not the comfortable fiction you carry in your head. The exact figures, however ugly. Then subtract what you owe from what you own. That single number is your net worth, and it is your 0 point. The mark you measure everything against from here forward. It might be negative. Good. A negative number you can see is worth more than a positive fantasy you can't. Most people go their entire lives reading about money and never once open their accounts and add up the damage. Because seeing it makes it real. And real is frightening. Understand what avoidance actually is. It is choosing to bleed in the dark because turning on the light hurts your eyes. You cannot fix a problem you refuse to look at. There is no clever route around the looking. Write the number down. Date it. This is the last day it gets to be a mystery. Then you track the flow. For the next 2 weeks, record every single thing you spend. Every coffee. Every subscription. Every tap of the card. All of it. No exceptions. No rounding. No, that one doesn't count. Sort each expense into 3 piles: essential, flexible, waste. Be honest about which pile things fall into, especially the ones you'd rather file under essential to avoid the shame of waste. The rent is essential. The streaming service you forgot you were paying for is waste. The dinner out is flexible or waste depending on whether you can meet your own eyes afterward. What you are hunting for are the hidden leaks. The subscription you meant to cancel 8 months ago and never did. The bank fees you've never once read. The emotional purchases you make when you're tired or bored or trying to feel like a person who has their life together. These leaks are trivial, one at a time, and catastrophic in some. They are the reason your money disappears without a trace at the end of every month. And until you name each one out loud, they own you and you don't even know their names. Only after you can see the leaks do you start cutting, and you cut in the correct order, which is the opposite of what feels natural. Everyone wants to begin by surrendering the $4 coffee. It feels righteous. It accomplishes almost nothing. Meanwhile, the 3 genuinely expensive forces in your life: where you live, what you drive, the recurring commitments you signed years ago and never questioned since, sit untouched because they feel permanent. They are not permanent. They are merely large. And large is exactly where the money is. Attack them. Renegotiate the bills. Actually call the providers. Cancel what you don't use. Consolidate or refinance the high-interest debt strangling you. One decisive cut to a large fixed cost outweighs 100 small daily acts of denial. And it has a second gift: you make the decision once and never have to spend willpower on it again. The coffee you must resist every single morning. The cheaper apartment resists itself. The month closes by building a starter emergency fund. Small, immediate, non-negotiable. Not the full 6 months of expenses the internet loves to prescribe. That comes later. And if you aim for it now, you will be overwhelmed and quit. You need only enough to absorb one small disaster without reaching for a credit card. Because reaching for the card is precisely how you fell into the hole, and you are not going to dig it deeper on your way out. Open a separate account, out of sight, physically apart from the money you spend. Automate a small transfer into it. The amount is almost irrelevant. What matters is that when the tire blows or the tooth cracks, you pay with your own money instead of borrowed money at 20%, and that single substitution severs the cycle that has kept you trapped for years. Month 1 ends here. You are not rich. You have stopped bleeding. And for the first time, you know exactly what you are working with. That is further than most people travel in a decade. Month 2. Build the machine. The second month is where you stop leaning on effort and start leaning on architecture. Willpower is a battery, and it drains. Every decision you make about money spends a little of the charge, and by evening, the battery is dead, which is, not coincidentally, exactly when you order the thing you didn't need and swore you wouldn't buy. The solution was never more willpower. You do not have more willpower. Nobody does. The solution is fewer decisions. So you build a budget, but not the kind haunting your imagination. Not a spreadsheet you check with guilt and abandon inside a week. You build a structure that runs whether you are watching it or not. Use a simple framework. Split your income into a few fixed categories: needs, wants, and saving or debt, in whatever proportions your reality can support. The precise percentages matter far less than the fact that the split is decided in advance, once, and then applied without further debate. And then you automate it, which is the part that actually changes your life. The day your income lands, the money moves into savings, toward debt, into the accounts where it belongs, before you ever see it or touch it. This is the principle that divides the people who build wealth from the people who merely intend to pay yourself first, not with whatever remains at the end of the month. Because nothing ever remains at the end of the month. The end of the month is where money goes to vanish. First, before the wants, before the leaks, before your tired evening self gets a vote. The money you keep is simply the money you never had the opportunity to spend. A budget that depends on your discipline will collapse, because your discipline is finite and life is an endless assault upon it. A budget that depends on automation will hold, because automation never gets tired, never gets sad, never rationalizes at midnight. With the machine assembled, you turn it on the debt, and you do it with a named strategy rather than a vague hope. There are two honest options. You can pay the smallest balances first, ignoring interest rates, to collect quick, visible wins that keep you moving, the snowball. Or you can pay the highest interest debt first, to surrender the least possible money to the lender, the avalanche. The avalanche is mathematically superior. The snowball is psychologically superior. Choose based on which version of yourself is more likely to actually reach the end. Because a flawless strategy you abandon is worth less than a flawed strategy you complete. Then build the real schedule exactly how much goes to which debt every month, until each one is dead. Track it where your eyes will land on it often. Watching a balance fall toward zero is one of the rare financial experiences that rewards you as much as spending does. And you are going to need that reward to carry you through the stretches where nothing feels like it's happening. And then, this is the part people skip, and skipping it is why they stall. You widen the gap from the other side. Everything so far has worked one lever, spend less. That lever has a floor. You cannot cut below zero. And no one in history has ever saved their way out of a genuinely inadequate income. Pretending otherwise is just another comfortable lie in a nicer outfit. So work the second lever. Earn more. Ask for the raise you've been too afraid to request. Sell the possessions quietly rotting in your closet and your garage. Build a skill somebody will pay for. Start the side income you keep narrating to friends and never actually begin. Spending has a hard ceiling, income does not. The people who turn their finances around fastest are the ones who realize, usually far too late, that during all the months they spent arguing with themselves about coffee, they could have been building the thing that made the coffee irrelevant. Month 2 ends with a machine humming beneath you, money flowing to the right places untouched by your hands, debt dying on a fixed schedule. And the gap between what you earn and what you spend, the only number in personal finance that ultimately decides your fate. Finally, visibly opening. Month 3, reinforce and reach for growth. The third month converts behavior into identity, and identity into a future. You have proven you can do this. Now you make it permanent, and you plant something that grows on its own, Start by finishing what month one began, take the starter emergency fund and grow it towards something that could actually hold you through a real storm, a lost job, a medical event, the category of thing that quietly ends other people's stability. You do not need it fully built by day 90. You need it visibly growing on autopilot, finishing itself while you sleep, so that the safety is inevitable rather than heroic. While you do that, refine the whole system, tune the automatic transfers, simplify the accounts, and hunt down every remaining point where a decision is still required, because every surviving decision is a place where you can still fail. And the goal is a financial life that runs so smoothly you nearly forget it exists. That forgetting is not neglect. It is the proof that the machine works. Now, and only now, after the bleeding is stopped, the leaks are sealed, the debt is dying, and the buffer is real. You let your money begin working instead of merely sitting. The concept is simple. However elaborately the industry dresses it up to sound, otherwise you place money into assets that grow on their own. And then you get out of the way. Index funds, retirement accounts, whatever vehicle actually fits your situation and your country. The mechanics you can learn in a single focused afternoon. The mistake people make is almost never choosing the wrong fund. It is waiting. Starting small and early buries starting large and late. Because time does the heavy lifting, and time is the one resource you can never buy back later at any price. Start small. Start now. Small and now beats perfect. And someday, every single time, without exception. This is general information, not personal investment advice. What fits you depends on your own situation, and it's worth confirming the specifics for yourself. Then you close the 90 days the way you open them with the truth. Return to the number you wrote down on the very first day. Calculate your net worth again, and compare. The financial difference may be modest, and you must not measure only the money. Measure the other thing. The way you feel when you open your banking app. The fact that a surprise expense no longer detonates a small panic in your chest. The quiet that has moved in where the noise used to live. See what worked, see what slipped, and adjust the system wherever it's strained. Then set the target for the next 90 days. Because this was never meant to end on day 90. It was meant to prove that you can move the angle and to install the machine that keeps moving it. From here, you either keep the momentum or you let it die. And those are the only two options on the table. By now, you already know which kind of person the last 3 months have made you into. What actually changes beyond the number? Here's the part no spreadsheet can capture, and it is the part that lasts. The largest change in 90 days is not in your accounts. It is in the person operating them. The anxiety that used to sit in your chest whenever money came up, it lifts. You sleep differently once you know exactly where you stand, because uncertainty is heavier than bad news, and you have traded uncertainty for facts. You begin making decisions from a place of control rather than fear. Your relationship with money shifts from avoidance to command, from flinching to facing. From a subject you change when it comes up to a subject you can look at directly without your pulse rising. What actually changes is your identity. You walked in as someone money happens to you walk out as someone who manages money. That is not a mood or an affirmation. It is a fact you have proven to yourself with 90 consecutive days of evidence. And proven evidence is the one possession nobody can repossess. The number was never the prize. The person who can produce that number again and again, on demand, whenever life requires it, that person is the prize. And now that person is you. The traps that make people fail. Most people who begin this never finish it, and not because it is hard, because they walk into a handful of entirely predictable traps. Here are the ones lying in wait for you, and how each one takes people down. The first is expecting too much and then quitting. You will hope for a transformed bank balance by week 3, and when it doesn't arrive, you'll conclude the whole thing failed. It didn't. You are building direction, not distance. Measure the angle, never the mileage. Or the mileage will lie to you and talk you into stopping. The second is cutting so hard the plan can't survive. Extreme austerity feels powerful for roughly 11 days, and then it snaps, and the rebound spending erases everything you gained. Sustainable and boring defeats brutal and brief. Build a system you can live inside for years, not a punishment you'll flee within the fortnight. The third is comparing yourself to other people. Someone will always appear to be further ahead. Most of them are performing, and a fair number are drowning underneath the performance. Your 0 point is your own, private and specific. The only legitimate comparison is you today against you 90 days ago, and no one else belongs in that frame. The fourth is abandoning ship at the first shock. An unexpected expense will land in the middle of your plan. It always does. Weak resolve reads it as proof the plan doesn't work and gives up. But that expense is the precise thing the buffer was built to absorb. The shock is not the failure. Quitting because of the shock is the failure. And they are not the same event. The fifth is doing it alone with no accountability. Silence makes quitting free. No one sees, so nothing stops you. And at midnight, nothing is easier than a promise made only to yourself. Tell someone. Post the commitment. Make quitting cost something real. Because a promise witnessed is far harder to break than a promise whispered into an empty room. The only thing left to decide. 3 months from today, you will be standing on the 91st day whether you began or not. That is not motivation. It is arithmetic. 90 days are going to pass regardless. They will pass while you build the system, or they will pass while you keep repeating the comfortable lie about how long all of this supposedly takes. Either way, they pass. The calendar has never once waited for anyone to feel ready, and it is not going to start with you. The only question, the single decision actually in front of you, is where you want to be standing when those days are gone. So do one thing today, not tomorrow, not when things calm down, not after the weekend that will bleed into the next weekend. Today, calculate your net worth and write the ugly number down, or open the separate account and move the first small amount into it. One action, right now. Before the momentum you feel while reading this evaporates the way it always has before. Then say it out loud to someone who will remember you said it. Make it real. Make quitting cost you something. The angle changes today, or it does not change at all.